Hi there, welcome to another video from Hegarty Maths. It's Mr. Hegarty here, our second video on surveys and questionnaires. Now I want to start with something I need you really familiar with for a question we're going to do at the end. I just want you to remember what a sample was. Do you remember that? Well, a sample is a smaller group within the population that you conduct your statistical investigation on. And there were two important and crucial features that you need to bear in mind when taking a sample of a population. And can you remember what they are? Well, the first one, the samples must be representative or unbiased. And the second one is the sample size needs to be large as you possibly can make it, because that way it's more accurate. And I roughly said a rule of thumb is 10% of the population size, but you may not always be able to do it, but it's got to be as large as you can make it. And those two features are something we're going to talk about later. Okay, the next question we did in the last video was something of the following nature. So pause the video and double check you can remember the common things wrong with a question. Well, the three things wrong with Henry's question here were that not all categories were covered. What if you've read 0 books or more than 4? There was no time frame in the question. It just says how many books do you read. It doesn't say a month, a week, a year, etc. And there's overlapping categories. Which box do you tick if you read 2 books a month? Which box would you tick if you read 3 books a month? Okay, so we're going to do some more questions a bit like this, but in a slightly different scenario, and when we have inequalities. So this type of notation I also need you aware of. So I just want you to pause the video and double check you remember inequality notation here, and you can answer the following question. Well, what does this mean? These are the set of values that are strictly bigger than -1 and strictly less than 3. But these ones are the set of values that are bigger than or it can equal -1 but strictly less than 3. So these would be your pictures here, and so for example it means that the number -1 is included in this set here but isn't included in that set. So I need you familiar with inequalities because that's the style of question we're doing now, so go back to your building blocks if the above looks unfamiliar. Anyway, let's get on to a question involving questionnaire and an inequality. So pause the video and have a go at the following. So Decca wants to know the handspan H of her students. They each measure their handspan and record their results by answering the question below. How wide is your handspan H? Tick as appropriate. And there are two things wrong with this question. Can you think what they are? Well, the first thing is no units are given in the question. The students don't know whether to measure in centimeters or inches, etc. So no units given. So it's not a specific question. So no units given for H. Now can you spot the other one? Well, imagine it was in centimeters and you were 10 centimeters. Which boxes could you tick? Well, you could tick that one because H can be bigger than or equal to 0 or less than or equal to 10. But you could also tick that one because here H is bigger than or equal to 10 and less than or equal to 15. So again, you've got overlapping categories here because you've been sloppy with the inequalities you've used. You've got to be very careful with these if you write these down, because here you've got overlapping category of 10 could go in both boxes. Similarly, 15 could go here or here, and similarly 20 could go here or here. So we've got the problem of overlapping categories. So obviously we're going to be asked to improve this question and write a better one. So pause the video and see if you can write a better question of that form. Well, the first thing you do is you give H some units as follows. So we've put in centimeters, that's one thing fixed. And the other thing, I've tidied up the inequalities here. H is bigger than or equal to 0 but strictly less than 10. Whereas in this case H is bigger than or equal to 10. It can equal 10 here but less than 15. So in the case here of if I measured 10 centimeters, I couldn't put 10 in here because in this category it's all the numbers strictly less than 10. The only option is to put it in here. Similarly, if it was 15, the only option would be to put it in here. If I had, say, 9.9 centimeters, well, I would put it in this category because that's less than 10. So I've tidied up the inequalities here. You can see the difference between the two here. I've just let a strictly less than sign here. Alternatively, you could have made this less than and this less than or equal to for each case, like as follows, and that again would work for us here. This one would give us good one here, because in this case, if I measured 10 centimeters, I would actually go in this one because h can be less than or equal to 10. In this case, h is strictly bigger than 10. So that's a better question. Okay, next question. Pause the video and have a go at the following. So Colin wants to know how often people in his local village with a population of 5,000 people in his village go to the cinema. He designs a survey question and asks the first 10 people coming out of the cinema one Saturday. How often do you go to the cinema? Tick as appropriate. So what are 3 things wrong with this? Well, the first thing is not all options covered. For example, 0 times or more than 4, or sorry, more than 5 times. Okay. The next thing, you've got a classic case of overlapping categories. If it was 2, which box would you tick? So overlapping. And the next thing is no time frame. It says how often do you go to the cinema? It doesn't say a week, a month, or anything like that, so no time frame. The classic mistakes with questions. Okay, so obviously the next question is write a better one. So pause the video and double check you can do that. So here's an example of a better one. I've given a time frame here. I've said a month. I've given all options, an option for 0, an option for 6 or more, and the categories aren't overlapping. 1 to 3, 4 to 5, 6 or more. So there's an example of a better one. Now the last part you're often asked in these questions is something like the following. So see if you can have a think about the answer to C. So it says, even if Colin used this improved question above, how reliable would you expect Colin's survey results to be? Explain your answer. I'll give you a hint here. Have a think about what makes a reliable sample. Well, let's think about the question here. Remember, there are 5,000 people in Colin's village and he's asking 10 people. So even if the question was a brilliant question and it's really well worded, he's only asking 10 out of 5,000 people. The sample size is pathetically small. So sample too small is definitely going to be a problem. So can you think of another one? Well, he is standing outside a cinema asking people how often they go to the cinema. Now, what about the people that never go to the cinema? They're never going to be coming out of the cinema, are they? So it's going to be biased towards people who go to the cinema. So biased, and you can just say as people coming out of the cinema are more likely to go more often. And that's it for this particular video. Thanks very much for watching.